Virgin Most Powerful Radio, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.
And now, Virgin Most Powerful Radio is pleased to present Hands-On Apologetics with renowned Catholic author and apologist, Gary Michuta.
And welcome everyone to Hands-On Apologetics who are entering into Virgin Most Powerful's Apologetics Dojo. It's great to be with you today. I am Gary Michuta, your host and sensei for this hour. And welcome on board as we explore our faith and learn how to explain the faith and defend it with clarity, charity, and confidence. And got a great show in store for you today, especially for parents out there who want to some tips, some life hacks, if you will, about how to raise your kids to be confident Catholics. Well, we have a lady on the show that's been on a few times. It's always great to have her on, and this really is the world in which she dwells, because it is none other than Christine Mooney Flynn of CatholicMamas.com. She's going to be coming on the show. And we're going to talk about, how can we raise our kids to be confident Catholics, especially in such a corrosive culture that we live in that's increasingly anti-Christian, increasingly anti-theistic. So that's going to be a very, very important segment. She's going to be coming on the other side of the break. And actually, before I get the rest of it, I want to give my shout-outs. I want to welcome all of you watching live stream on Facebook and YouTube. And all the other great social media platforms. Thank you. Hello. Great to see familiar names. And also, I want to welcome all of you listening on great radio stations around the United States and also via podcasts around the world. Yes, this is an international endeavor, folks. And part of that is because of the great work that all you dojoites. I don't know what we would call somebody that attends a dojo. But, you're doing a great job doing apologetics in place and sharing the good news and also telling people about this program and the other programs here. If you haven't subscribed, by the way, we do have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe and, tell your friends. Pass it along. Maybe you know some young parents who are they have young kids and they're concerned about the culture and concerned about raising their kids, not just to be Catholics, but good, confident Catholics. They'll want to hear this program. So please spread the word. By the way, if you have any questions for Christina Flynn on the other side of the break, give us a call, 888-526-2151. That's 888-526-2151. Or you can always email us at questions@handsonapologetics.com. And appreciate everything. So thank you so much, gang. It's great to be with you. It's great to have, it's nice to be able to look to the right here in the dojo, to the social media section, and see familiar names day in and day out, and see those happy, celebrative emojis. It feels like we're a family. And so let's grow the family, shall we? Let's see. Let's jump to our Finding the Fallacy for today. I didn't announce that. The Finding the Fallacy, every Friday we try to cross-train, try different types of workouts. Monday through Thursday we look at informal fallacies with Finding the Fallacies. On Friday, try to switch things up a little bit, get ready for the weekend, and we usually look at a propaganda technique. Of course, propaganda techniques are like one step under a fallacy. At least the fallacy is just kind of a broken argument, where a propaganda technique, using propaganda in the negative sense of the word, is really a kind of social manipulation, a way of sneaking in under our cognitive radar to make us think something, believe something, do something, without actually even posing an argument. And so today's propaganda technique is called the transference of value. And that's very popular, especially with political ads, political campaigns. I don't know if you would really find it so much in apologetics, although you probably could. Well, let's jump into it since I brought it up. What is transference of value? Well, basically, whenever someone or something is set against a certain background, and that background is evocative of certain emotions, either positive or negative emotions, there's a kind of transference of value that occurs in our minds, in the audience's minds, where that person or thing or whatever begins to be associated with the value of whatever they're surrounded by. Okay, so for example, if you want to tar and feather your opponent, you probably have a picture of them, probably black and white, in some really bad pose, and you would juxtapose their picture with something odious that people would not like or can't stand. And, picture of Adolf Hitler or something like that, right? And what goes on is there is a transference of value, because what they're doing is they're associating their opponent with whatever is odious, right? Or, it also works in reverse. So you could have something very positive. Well, usually with political campaigns, the stage is decked out in American flags and patriotic stuff in the background. And the idea is that whatever patriotic feelings you have that the flag evokes will somehow transfer to the subject, who is the person running. So, like I said, it happens a lot in commercials, right? There's a reason why you have all these, different images of clean mountain water and fresh mint and all that stuff, and then you have a picture of bubble gum. They're trying to transfer that value to the bubble gum. So just be aware of it. Once you're aware that a propaganda technique is being used on you, that is the silver bullet, folks, because it loses all its power. In fact, it kind of boomerangs, because now whoever's doing this is trying to manipulate you to feel a certain way, think a certain way, do something, buy something. And that is our propaganda technique for today, the transference of value. All right, let's go to the Meet the Early Father segment. As you know, every episode we look at an early church father. Today's early church father, I would venture to say no one's ever heard of. That's how obscure he is. But he's actually a kind of important early church father. It's Evagius of Pontus. Evagius of Pontus, who lived between AD 345, AD 399. Evagius was born in, as you guessed, Pontus. He was ordained a lector by St. Basil the Great and a deacon by St. Gregory of Nazianzus. In Jerusalem, he was acquainted with a Roman lady named Melania, and in his self-imposed exile in the deserts of Egypt, he knew well Macarius, the Alexandrian, and also Macarius, the Egyptian. By the way, the latter Macarius is known as the Great, Macarius the Great. Jurgen's Faith of the Early Fathers says, and that's what we use for these segments, that it's extremely unfortunate that Evagius's numerous writings have not survived in a better state of preservation. The loss of his works is probably attributed in large part to the condemnation as an Origins in 553. So, as you know, Origen, although he's a great early church father, very, very insightful writer, did go off the deep end on a couple of issues like the preexistence of the soul, or that some souls that were damned to hell would eventually be resuscitated and come to heaven. And all that stuff, by the way, flowered after his death. He actually died within the fold of the church. But that started what's known as Origenism. And unfortunately, our early church father for today was accused and condemned as an Origenist in 553 at the Fifth Ecumenical Council, the Second Council of Constantinople. We catch glimpses of him in the writings of Maximus Confessor, Isaac of Nineveh, John Cassian, and Bar Heberus. Very little of his works actually survive in the original Greek. They did survive more in Latin, Syriac, Armenian, Arabic, and Ethiopic translations. And he's probably best known for a letter This is letter 67 of his corpus of works, which is titled An Apology or Defense to the People of Caesarea for his withdrawal and a defense of the faith. Now, the letter is not merely an anti-Arian treatise. Of course, the Arians believe that the Son, the second person of the Trinity, was actually created by the Father and was not equal to the Father. So it's not only does he attack Arianism, but he also attacks another heresy, which, if you play Scrabble, you could rack up a lot of points with. It is the pneumatic, let's see if I can say it, pneumatomachian heresy, which was a denial of the divinity of the Holy Spirit. And so it's also both of those heresies kind of combined into what Jurgens calls an excellent Trinitarian source that can be dated at the end of the 4th century, perhaps in 381 AD or soon after. If it probably comes, if as seems probable to some, Evagius shows an awareness of the 5th theological oration of St. Gregory of Nyssa. So great stuff. And Jurgens gives us a couple of quotes. I'll give you a little taste of what he wrote. Some pretty insightful stuff. He says the heretics ought to be confessing that the Father is God, that the Son is God, and that the Holy Spirit is God, just as it is taught by the divine words and by those who have a better understanding of the Scriptures. To those who accuse us of a doctrine of 3 gods, let it be stated that we confess one God, not in number but in nature. For all that is said to be one numerically is not one absolutely, nor is it simple in nature. It is universally confessed, however, that God is simple and not composite. And that's our early church father today, Evagius. And coming up on the other side of the break, Christina Moon, Flynn, on how to raise kids to be competent Catholics. Stay tuned, folks.
Jesus said in Luke 17, "When you have done all that you were ordered to do, say, 'We are unprofitable servants. We have only done our duty.'" According to St. John of the Cross, God is pleased with the little deeds we do in secret. He takes more pleasure in these than in a multitude of grand works that we may do out of the desire to be seen by others. May God help us to do the things that please Him, and not just to appear great in the eyes of others.
Did you know my mom's gonna have a baby?
She is? Will it be a boy? Or will it be a girl?
We don't know yet, but we heard the heartbeat and my dad said this is gonna be someone very special.
You mean like being a president? Or maybe a doctor?
Well, probably maybe like a singer or dancer, I think.
Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. We know that every baby is a miracle and has the potential to do great things. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance, or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please call 1-800-366-7773 or visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
Pro-Life Across America, the Billboard people.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for your support here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Here's an easy way to do it. If you're going to sell or buy a house, call Real Estate for Life, 877-543-3871, because they're going to get you a Christ-centered agent to purchase your home or to sell your home. And at the close of escrow, a portion of his commission goes right back to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Call 877-543-3871. Thank you so much for your support.
Now, back to Hands-on Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody, to Hands-On Apologetics. And my apologies, folks. Sometimes the lips moves faster than the mind. But anyway, let's focus on our topic today, which actually is a very important topic, and that is how to raise our kids to be confident Catholics, and to help us come up with ideas and hacks as to how to do that as a parent. We have our good friend Christina Flynn. Of course, Christina Flynn is the host of the Catholic Mama podcast. She's a convert to the faith, and she blogs all things Catholicism to help fellow parents feel more sure in their faith and raise confident Catholic children. You can head to her website, which is www.thecatholicmama.com. And also you could grab a free ebook there, which is How to Talk to Your Kids About God, which helps parents answer tough theological questions simply and truthfully. And again, that website is www.thecatholicmama, all one word, .com. And Christine, welcome back to Hands-On Apologetics.
Hey, thanks for having me, Gary. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's always great to have you back. Boy, do you ever have one of those days that your mouth just isn't connected to your mind?
I hope this isn't going to turn into one of those days for me. Although, I was listening. I do like to play Scrabble, and I can't pronounce that heresy that you were talking about. But if I could figure out how to spell it, I think that would actually go over well for me in the points.
Hey, there, someone in the chat room asked that, so I'll actually spell it for her. Maybe there's people out there thinking, how in the world do you spell that? It's PNEUMATOMACHIAN.
Ooh, I wonder if that's even possible with the Scrabble, with all the Scrabble tiles.
Yeah,
well, no.
Maybe it's a better spelling bee quiz question.
Yeah. I would definitely have been kicked off of the spelling bee stage for that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, how is the Flynn family coping with the COVID lockdown stuff?
Well, Wisconsin, where we are, is starting to loosen the restrictions. So we've been able to get out a little bit, but mostly it was just, it's nice to be able to see family and friends a little bit here and there again without feeling so nervous about it. Yeah. But we own our own business and we homeschool. So, and our kids are pretty young. I mean, the oldest is only 6 years old. So thankfully we have not been disrupted that much. And I'm very grateful to God for that. And I know this has hit families in various different ways, and some much harder than others. But for now, we're doing okay.
Yeah, good. That's good report. So, I mean, this really is, especially for young parents, the question of how can we possibly raise our kids so that not only do they retain their faith in Catholicism, but that they're confident in their faith. Where do you start?
Yeah. I mean, really, secular society will waste no time in telling anybody that their faith is antiquated or, anti-woman or anti-science, anti-modernity. So it's so tricky because if you are not doing your part, which is passing on the faith to your children, somebody else is just going to swoop in. And a lot of these catchphrases when it comes to atheism or just anti-Catholicism, they sound good. Yeah. So it's if our kids aren't equipped to answer those questions, or at least have the faith and trust in their parents and their church that even if they don't know the answer, that answer does exist, I can imagine that it would be very difficult to stay Catholic. I mean, I don't have the benefit of having been raised Catholic. I was raised in a non-religious household. It was actually pretty anti-Catholic or anti-organized religion in general. So I would have been one of those people trying to get friends to stop being so obedient to the church.
Yeah.
So where do you start? I think the main thing is to be. I think it really comes down to being joyful to begin with in the faith, and not looking at going to church or following, no meat on Fridays in Lent, or maybe no meat throughout the year, as something of a burden. I think it really comes down to how we act about our faith, and then also how we teach it is something that goes hand in hand. But it really comes down to how we live it out in our own lives, because children are looking at that all the time.
Yeah. In fact, I think that's probably the first thing they pick up is, not so much arguments or facts or anything like that, but they're looking at does mom and dad really buy into this? Do they enjoy it? Is this something that they would rather not have? Those type of message I think young kids really pick up on very quickly.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Are my parents looking for an excuse not to go to mass? I was thinking about this. We have a very large, beautiful, but pretty poorly trained Saint Bernard who is very food obsessed. So which you can imagine as, 100+ pound dog would probably be. Yeah. And I noted my son said something to our Saint Bernard after she snatched some food away from him. And I was like, oh, that's something I would have said. I can't remember exactly the words. It probably wasn't very good though. But that made me think of that. Like, wow, I mean, my child is picking up on just the way I talk to the dog sometimes. What else? They pick up everything, and they are so attuned to body language or tone of voice. You really do have to pay attention to how you approach the faith. Is it something that is just a burden and an annoyance and something that takes you away from the rest of your fun life? Or is it the center of your life? And the way you approach that is going to be vastly different, even in your body language and how energetic you might be getting dressed to go to mass, or if you're taking your kids to daily mass, or not grumbling about things that you have to do for the faith, or just like, oh, quick, we got to get this prayer done because we have to do it. Or are we joyful and happy and excited to build our lives around the faith, which should be at the center of it?
Yeah, that's very true. I'm usually joyful getting dressed. I'm thinking back when our kids were young. I was joyful getting myself dressed. By the time I tried to get them dressed, I wasn't so joyful.
That is, yeah. I have no answers to that. I'm living that reality at the moment. We've made our kids throughout quarantine. We've been doing dry masses during the day just with the reading. So every morning around 7:15, we're early birds, and small children are usually anyway. But everybody gets dressed for the day in nice clothes, and they can get into comfier things later on if they want. But we've decided that once we are past quarantine and daily masses are back on, we are going to be going every single day. We typically would go 2 or 3 days a week outside of Sunday obligation. But yeah, so we've been training everybody to get dressed and find socks and everything. It won't be so painful in a few weeks.
Yeah, every Sunday somebody only has one shoe, and no one knows where the other shoe is.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is. And you have to look at that as a challenge. God puts these little obstacles to see how much you love them and to overcome them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, use those moments as sanctification. Yeah. Or prepare ahead of time and put the shoes out in the evening before you go to bed. Yeah, that could also be a good idea.
That didn't work either. I don't know how. I mean, it's just if it wasn't a shoe, it was a sock. If it wasn't a sock, it was, I don't know. But being joyful, But I think parents have to be careful not to manufacture joy, because kids can smell. Like when the parents are trying to pull something over on them, it's got to be authentic, right?
Yeah, but we all should be, if we understand our faith, despite all the trials that life may throw at us, we should be exceedingly joyful. I mean, we have a God who loves us and who will, at the end of our lives and then at the end of time, bring us to Him for eternity. I mean, that's a very happy ending that we should all be looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, so maybe that's a good, starting point. If you aren't joyful about your faith, you need to get joyful. You need to understand it, because chances are you don't understand fully. Yeah.
Yeah. If you are annoyed that you have to go to mass on Sundays, well, chances are you don't understand fully the Eucharist. Yeah. If you understand the Eucharist, you would be very happy to go to church, and it doesn't matter if, you're frustrated getting everybody into the car or getting dressed or finding shoes or realizing that a toothbrush is being used to brush the dog's fur and not your child's teeth or whatever it is. Like, that stuff we can put aside if we know that we are going to the wedding feast, every Sunday or even in daily mass. So yeah, if there are points that I would try to, identify what if there are points of friction in our own lives towards the faith, what are those points? Because we should be joyful about all of it once we understand what it is, and then dive deeper so that you can learn. And then, of course, there's a good chance that as either your children at a young age are going to come up with some really cool philosophical and theological questions for you to tackle, or as they get older, they're going to wrestle with these things too. So no matter how old your children are, it'll be a good thing for us as parents to go deeper into our own questions of faith.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're struggling, pray. Bring it up to the Lord that I'm struggling to be joyful in this, and please help me.
Yes, that is prayer should probably be the first out of anything. Pray to how to be joyful for your own faith. Pray on how to give the gift of faith to your children, or your family members who may have gone astray, or whatever. Yeah, prayer should be a numero uno on the list there. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, so be joyful. That's a great target, to because after all, I mean, the whole goal of being Catholic is happiness, right? Ultimately, happiness in God. And it's funny how if you told somebody the reason I'm Catholic is because I want to be happy in the greatest possible way, people look at you like, what?
Yeah.
It's like somehow that's
not
been
something
lost
you hear
in the mix. Yeah.
Yeah, you must be confused. No, I can tell you. I mean, I've shared my conversion story on your show before, but I spent years of searching for answers to those big questions that we all seem to have, and I know a life without God and without the God of Catholicism and the one true God. Mm-hmm. And I would have said that I was happy and free then, but now I know better. And there was a lot of pain and struggling and unhappiness and uncertainty through all those years that Catholicism has completely answered any question that I ever had. Of course, it doesn't make it easy, no, but it's simplified so much and given me a clearer path than I ever had. And man, what if there isn't happiness in that? I don't know. When you get rid of that confusion, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I think when people are in the midst of that confusion, they don't realize, that they are in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, how could you? It's just it's murky, and it's probably difficult. And I remember thinking, why I'm a more introverted person. And going to church, wow, going on a Sunday, I have to work in an office. So I was working full time in an office at this time as well, working in an office, having to deal with people all the time, having to be there from certain times, getting dressed, getting ready, getting out the door. And now I got to go on a Sunday morning and do this all over again for something I'm not even sure about. And it was draining at first for me until I understood what it was even more. And this is back when we were trying a Protestant church. But once I became Catholic and understood what all the purpose of all this was, the energy spent was a good thing.
Yeah, very good. We're chatting with Christine Flynn of thecatholicmama.com and how to raise confident Catholic children. Stay tuned, folks. Listen to Anti-Apologetics.
Hi, this is Jesse Romero from the Terry and Jesse Show, also from Jesus 911. Let's face it, we all need to use the internet, but we need screen accountability. Why? Pornography is a huge problem, especially on the internet. And every time we tap into the internet, we get bombarded with images and temptations that degrade our humanity. So we need Covenant Eyes to block these pornographic sites and advertisements from infiltrating our lives. Covenant Eyes helps us take custody of our eyes and custody of our intellect. So I recommend you go to covenanteyes.com and type in the promo code VMPR to support the network. Protect yourself and your family from the imminent threats on the internet. www.covenanteyes.com, code VMPR, live porn free. Thank you for listening to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Thank you. God bless you. Keep the faith.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And here's an easy way to support us by going to smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center or Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And when you log in your Amazon account and you purchase products, a portion of it will go right back in supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And it doesn't cost you a dime. I want to thank you ahead of time because that supports us year-round. May God bless you and your family. Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Hands-on Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody. We are chatting with Christine Flynn about how to raise Catholic, confident children. And, Christine, that's a good place to start. First get your house in order, make sure you're joyful about the faith. Because, kids pick up on that probably more than anything you could possibly say to them, especially at a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. You said get your house in order. It's just thinking of that, the home, the family is the domestic church. So we are, as parents, completely in charge of our children's faith formation. So whether or not our kids go to a public school or they're homeschooled or they go to a parochial school, whatever, a religious private school, no matter what they get taught anywhere else, whether it's, a Sunday school or children's liturgy of the word, or if they're just going to a public school, it doesn't matter. We're in charge of our children's faith formation, and we have to really take ownership of that. So besides just taking care of, ourselves, because the whole our purpose is to get ourselves, our spouse, and our children to heaven. Those are the top three there. And we have to take our roles as the leaders of that domestic church quite seriously. So it's this interesting juxtaposition of joy but seriousness at the same time.
Yeah, right. And I know, I as a Catholic, not so much my house, but I know with my friend's house, parents kind of figured the faith would be handed down through osmosis, that we'll send them to Catholic school and we'll go to Mass every Sunday. That's pretty much all we need to do.
Yeah, but how many people have you heard saying, oh, I went to Catholic school, I know all about this, and let me tell you, and then suddenly they're telling you they're either not Catholic anymore or they're cherry-picking beliefs. So yeah, just because you went to a Catholic school or you went to Mass every Sunday does not mean that you have taken or you have full ownership of your own faith. For sure. And actually, a friend of mine was saying that a silver lining for her and her family during quarantine is that she was able to see very clearly how much she was missing, how much she was failing, I guess, her own family in catechizing them. And she really decided to take ownership and get more into what's, liturgical living, like looking at the liturgical calendar and celebrating feasts, or the feast days and different saints, or maybe actually celebrating the full, 50 days of Easter. And so that's been really interesting to see. She's been forced to look into her home life a little bit more in terms of faith education, just because she's been at home and has had to do it all herself.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, where would young parents, should they start with catechesis?
Well, there's so much. It's funny, when I started becoming Catholic, I didn't know that there was a lot of Catholic podcasts or blogs. I was like, maybe I'll just start my own because I don't really see anything out there. Well, I just wasn't looking in the right places. But there are so many good resources for children. Anything from, actually, I just had her on my show a couple months ago and aired the episode recently. because Mass was shut down to the public for so long. But it was, Jennifer Sharp is a Catholic author. We did a podcast episode on how to get your kids engaged in the Mass, not just, sitting still and behaving in the pews. And she has written many books as a convert to the faith, noticing that she needed to engage her children more. So she wrote books that are have a lot of hands-on manipulatives for kids who are small, that they can either learn about the Mass prior to going to church, or if they're struggling to sit still in the pews, they can play around with these religious books rather than just trying to fill the time with some kind of toy or something else that doesn't really teach them anything about the faith while they're there. There's so many. Catholic Sprouts is a great podcast where in about 5 or 10 minute episodes every single day, the host goes through just various aspects of the faith that are, it's very, very Catholic, and it's just, she speaks very kindly, but simply, but also respectfully towards the children. So, there's just so much possibility from reading books about saints that have beautiful illustrations for children, to listening to podcasts for kids, even just the Bible on audio. And there's just so much. And if you picked any one of those things, that's a good start, because it's something, and it's geared towards children. And of course, children don't want to be talked down to, but they also need something that's more at their level. So, and there's the need has been seen and met by a lot of Catholic parents.
Yeah. That reminds me of a program I'm still trying to get my parish to do, and it's slowly moving forward, is to get those little hardcover First Communion books that have the order of the Mass and the rosary, and there's lots of pictures in it. I don't know if you've seen those.
No, I haven't seen that. That sounds nice.
Yeah, and I wanted to start a program where the small children at Mass, they can get these books, and the parents can help them learn the order of the Mass, flipping through, looking at the pictures. And I remember as a kid, that's what my parents did. And as a little kid, you want to be like everybody else, and everybody's looking at the missal, so... you have
you get your own picture. Right.
Yeah. And this is probably not very holy incentive, but I wanted Mass to end as a little kid. Yeah. So, I wanted to find out where we were in the Mass, so I knew how much longer it had to be here. But it worked. I learned the Mass, Maybe not the best intentions, but
yeah, that's how I look at children. There are some children who are naturally very faith-filled, and, they are just naturally more inclined to want to immerse themselves in the church. But most children, I would say, are not. And we have to meet them where they are. And if it's just a way for them to, pass the time and try to figure out where we are and where we're going, well, that's, at least they're getting something. It's better than them just looking at, sneaking in a comic book to read or something like that.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point, too, because all children aren't alike. There are some kids that just have a great grace. They're so disposed to God. And then there's others that, it's totally off of the radar screen. At least it appears so.
Yeah. And I think, again, if you just look at any resources, books, or even comic books that have come out, I can't think of the name of it right now, but there's like a Lego-like graphic novel that somebody put together that goes through the stories of the Bible. That's awesome for some kids. It's, so there's just so many different ways. Children, adults, we all learn very differently. But I think it comes down to, either doing some research and figuring, your children best, what they would like to read or interact with the best. Maybe they really like coloring. Well, there's plenty of coloring worksheets. There's, the show that you all like to eat together while there's like a feast day with corresponding food ideas pretty much for every day of the calendar year. So, there's something that we can do to celebrate the faith. And I think it goes back to being joyful about the faith. If I don't know exactly, but my father was raised in a very strict Catholic household. He was one of 10. All of them left the faith as adults. And my dad now seeing me and my husband raise our children Catholic, and we have a lot of fun. We celebrate the feast days. I don't think that happened in his household. So it is very important to make it, you don't want to make it an entertainment system in the faith, right, but there is a lot of joy and everyday joy that we can glean from it.
Yeah, that's very good point, because you're creating opportunities, to form and inform your kids and everybody else.
Yeah. My out of the blue, one of my daughters is a total tomboy, always has been. And right after our fourth was born, she, I think, was just trying to reinvent herself a little bit, and she got into princesses. I was like, "Whoa!" That was actually harder to deal with my crocodile-loving daughter wanting to dress up like a princess than it was to deal with a newborn. That threw me so much, and she started acting like whatever she thought a princess was acting like. I was like, and it was kind of bratty. And well, thank goodness, but there's a saint for that. So there's Saint Elizabeth was a princess, and she helped feed the poor. She, according to legend, she fed 6 people on her way to mass every day and back. And within just a little while of bringing a Catholic saint into what could have been, we could have gone like the Disney princess route or something and made her into a secular princess kind of. Yeah. But instead we went and we picked up some lessons from a Catholic saint, Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, and suddenly my daughter is now serving everybody their breakfast, lunch, and dinner, saying, "Well, princesses serve others first." Like, all right,
Wow.
there's opportunities in all of it just to bring. I mean, Catholic means universal, and that means throughout our whole lives, even the little stuff as kids, it has a place if we have the eyes to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. And saints, it's interesting how individuals gravitate towards certain saints. They just have this kind of affinity with them. And it's such a great role model if you could introduce your kids to, saints that kind of share similar, likes, dislikes, features, whatever.
Yeah, really. There's just there's an app for that. Well, there's a saint for that. There's a saint for every walk of life. And we've been, my youngest or one of my younger ones really likes dogs. Well, then we talk about Saint Dominic or Saint Francis, with an animal, the saint that's usually seen with animals of some kind. Yeah. Or one of my kids really likes Saint Michael. So, I mean, and then you can just, I don't know, everything just starts to pull in. It's really difficult to explain, but if you just start little by little, I got to tell you, I mean, a year or two ago, I would try to do what's known as liturgical living, and it was overwhelming. Like, how am I supposed to do all this tradition and this tradition? And it's like every day of the year, I can't do all this. But then we just started adding in, little bits that, if my daughter really likes Saint Michael, the Archangel, on September, I think it's 29th is the Archangel's feast day. We made this cardboard box with red and black tissue paper, and then we took a paintball gun and we called it the Devil Box, and we destroyed it, just like Saint Michael. And we just ate some food that was, I think we had Angel's food cake and Devil's food cake or something. And it was silly and fun. It was basically, I don't know, it's just like a fun little party that my kids are remembering now, and they remember this stuff. They're retaining what we taught them about the faith that day, which is pretty cool to see. Yeah,
that is really, really cool. Especially, you're so wise, because just like with working out physically, you don't start bench pressing 200 pounds or whatever. You got to start small and work your way up. And that's true, isn't it, for with kids?
Yeah. It really might be that you just remember what day they were baptized on and have a cake that day and celebrate them and, show them pictures of their baptism. And that's just one thing a year outside of, Christmas and Easter or any of the holy days. You don't have to do much. It doesn't have to be crazy and expensive or anything like that.
Very good. Yes. We are chatting with Christine Flynn of the CatholicMama.com podcast ministry. Stay tuned.
Welcome, Daniel. You're on the line. What's on your mind, brother?
Hi, I just wanted to share a testimony about Virgin Most Powerful Radio. I had a buddy at work who, he's a lukewarm Catholic guy, and I wanted him to start listening to the Terry and Jesse show, so I kept telling him to download the app, and he kept putting me off. So one day, I grabbed his phone and I downloaded the app for him. I went on vacation, and I kept telling him to listen to it. He was kind of put me off. I came back from vacation. He comes to my cubicle, and he says to me, "Hey, man, I've been listening to the Terry and Jesse show, and it's great." And it's made a big impact in his life. The guy, he's going to weekly adoration a couple times a week. He goes to the Mass in the morning. Mm-hmm. He's an on-fire Catholic, and he promotes the Terry and Jesse show and the Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Daniel, what a testimony. And I want to encourage our listeners to get those cards by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org and do what Daniel's doing. Go out and spread the faith by inviting people to listen to Virgin Most Powerful. Daniel, thanks for your testimony, brother. God love you.
You're welcome.
Sirach 11:24 says, "Do not say, I am self-sufficient. What harm can come to me now?" According to St. Catherine of Siena, presumption is like vermin burrowing at the root of the tree of our soul. If we do not uproot it with great care and humility, it will eventually destroy the soul. May God keep us from all presumption of mind and heart, and realize that we depend on Him for everything.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
This is Jesse Romero. You're listening to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands-On Apologetics. We're chatting with Christine Flynn of the CatholicMama.com Catholic Podcast, talking about how to raise Catholic confident children. And Christine's really downloading a whole bunch of really great ideas, just simple things like celebrating their children's feast days, baptismal days. And, Christine, over the break, I was thinking this is a remarkable opportunity, especially if you bring in their friends, to evangelize the friends as well.
Yeah. Especially, I was thinking about that. If you want to celebrate a feast day on a weekend, even if, say, St. Michael's feast day didn't fall on in the middle of the week or whatever, you could have had friends over and shot a devil box with a paintball gun. What kid isn't going to want to do that?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's ways. Most of the stuff you can just have a party. And of course, again, it's not you don't want to make the faith an entertainment system. And, we're here just for the feel of it. And if it is boring, then, we bounce. That's not the point. But, there are truths to be learned and taught there that make them, because it's hard for kids. It's very difficult for most children to sit still in Mass or to understand why you have to be quiet. At least you can bring it all together that way. Like, look, we're here giving thanks to God for this, 30 minutes or so on if it's going to daily Mass, or an hour or more for a weekend or solemnity Mass. We can be thankful and prayerful here because of all the other awesome stuff that we get to do, and our faith can be infused in all of it. So be prayerful here because we're giving thanks for all the other cool stuff that we get to do.
Right. And, the faith impact lives. It should affect how we live. Otherwise, it's just an idea, something that's kind of out there that adults kind of believe, but you don't really have a clue. But it really should inform our lives.
Yeah, there's no reason why we should divorce our Catholic faith from the rest of our lives. It should infuse everything, whether we are washing dishes or going to a baseball game or voting or whatever it is. I mean, Catholicism is everything. Again, it's universal. So it should be in every aspect of our lives and inform the way we live for sure. And the way we teach our kids, which, I was thinking about it too on the break. Besides being joyful and praying about how to do this, I think it really boils down, especially if I'm thinking if you're just starting out and trying to teach your children all this stuff. Children are natural philosophers or theologians. They've got a lot of really, really good questions. I think it really boils down to just being a good listener. And even especially if you have older kids, say, and you haven't really had these conversations, and all of a sudden, you're coming in out of the blue, it might seem, and trying to teach them about the faith. I think it really boils down to just listening to everything. I'm going to simultaneously paraphrase and butcher the quote about how, listen to your kids when they tell you the small things, because to them it's, so they'll come to you for the big things, because to them it's always been the big things. So if you are, as a parent, just open and willing to listen to your children about everything, and, whether it's a bug they found outside or a friend that said something that they don't like, they're more likely, I imagine, to give you that same courtesy back and will value your opinion as well. So when it gets time to talking about faith, they'll prick their ears up a little bit, just as, they may have when you talk to them about the bug that they found.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah, because I don't think you can teach kids about the faith unless you have a good relationship with them in the first place, because otherwise they might just not pay attention.
That's true. Yeah. You have to give them the respect that you expect them to give to you, basically. Yeah. So building on that, so you have this joyful home that you integrate the faith into the daily life of the family. And then we're talking about catechesis. And let's talk a little bit about these little miniature fun-sized theologian philosophers. How do you handle it when they do ask the big questions?
Well, thankfully, in our household, we have really, as converts, just like a new person who moves to your city and suddenly they're telling you about all these things that are there. And, if you've lived in that city for a long time, like, what? I didn't even know about that. So since we are converts to the faith, my husband and I are both voraciously, consumed everything about Catholicism. So we've been able to, turn around and answer a lot of the questions. But then there are so many, because we have only been in the faith for a few years, that we just don't know the answers to off the top of our head. So, it's either that we answer the question because we know the answer and we try to give them, knowing their personalities, what they would understand. Or, and this is really important, I have an ongoing note in my phone, on one of my apps on my phone, of things that I need to look up for the kids. And lately it's been what scorpions eat, or, how do people make bridges? There's just a lot of questions on there. But there are faith-related ones, and I actually owe my children an answer about why Jesus had to ascend to heaven before the Holy Spirit came. So I had that question yesterday. I still have to turn around and answer for my kids. But if I don't know the answer right off the top of my head, or it's not even satisfying to me, the answer that I do know, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look that up, and we're going to come back to it. And it's very important that you actually do come back to it. You can't say, oh, yeah, we'll look that up sometime, and then off into the ether it goes. So if you know the answer, awesome. Give it to your kids the way that you know that they would like to hear it. I like to do a lot of funny voices and character acting for my kids. But that might not be your thing. It might be reading a book or whatever. Or if you don't know the answer, find it out. Find out a really good answer for them that they can understand, and that'll help you with your faith as well, and learn together. Because I think it's really important that we notice that as Christians, we're all in a boat and we're going in the same direction, but we're each on our individual boats. So, we're all heading towards Christ. I'm not better than my children because I'm older than them. We are all, brothers and sisters in Christ. So it's very important that, I treat those questions with respect and get them answers that they deserve, even if it takes a couple days before I get around to it.
Yeah. And that's why I'm really excited about that free ebook. Is it still available? How to talk to your kids about that?
It is. I was actually thinking about maybe adding some more questions. But yeah, so when we converted to Catholicism a couple of years ago, our oldest child was old enough to remember when we didn't go to church, and all of a sudden, we're going. He had a lot of questions. And I noticed there's some really good big ones, like, why does God create bad people? And a couple other ones about George Washington also came up. I mean, they're all over the place, but some were really, really good. And I learned quickly how to answer these questions in a way that, made sense to my child, but also was full of truth, because you don't want to make it simplistic. Right. Yeah. So I compiled all the questions, I think maybe 8 or 9 of them, maybe more than that, of that my kids were asking a lot. And then, gave the grown-up or maybe older child version of the answer, and then also a more simplified answer for the younger kids, as well as resources about, where you can go if you want more information. And admittedly, there's a lot of St. Thomas Aquinas in there, but of course there is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's great. Started introducing Aquinas early on. That is a bullet point right there.
That's right. Yeah, start early. Yeah, and also I did put in there too. My background in education and my business before I stayed home full time with my children has been in research and market research specifically. So I've and in journalism. So there's just a lot of, having to relate to people. And so I made sure in, how to talk to your kids about God. It's not even just these Q&As, but it's also just ideas on how to have your, listening tips for your children and yourself, and how to actually have these conversations, not just foisting the faith onto your kids with, out of the blue and them being unwilling to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the kids get older, like into adolescence, my friend Steve Ray, he told me that, when they started getting into the teen years, he kind of flipped it around and started challenging their faith. And he would poke them with, questions, how do you know God exists, or anything like, whenever it would come up, and kind of force his kids to be able to push back and, argue for themselves the correct position.
Yeah, I love that idea. And it should be a conversation. It's not just, question one, who created the universe?
Exactly.
Yeah, it should, right?
Exactly.
It is a conversation. A lot of times when my kids will come and ask me questions about whatever it is, well, what do you think? And, a lot of times there are some interesting ideas that they come up with. Sometimes they're closer to the truth than not. But yeah, it is really important to hear what they think rather than just trying to pour knowledge in, because that's just not how the human brain works in acquiring a knowledge. So yeah, as they get older, because people are going to challenge them everywhere, internet, friends, when they get off to college, it's very, very important that you start as early as you can. But even if your kids are older, you start now, basically. Just start now. And again, you'll know your kids well enough that poke and prod a little bit, or maybe it's reading a book together and discussing, having your own like family Catholic book club, whatever it is. I mean, yeah, I really like that idea. And I have some argumentative kids, so I look forward to doing that as they get older.
Yeah, I mean, especially in those years, they're argumentative. That's perfect for apologetics. Because
that's right, yeah.
Fight. It's just, it's almost like, with the influenza stuff, they give you a virus that's not quite, it's not potent, so that you could build up the antibodies. So, I think it's doing it in your household while they're young, so they start hearing these objections and knowing there's a response. I think that can go a long way to protecting them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's role playing, basically, which it really goes a long way in learning how to deal with these things when they come up in the outside world. And, I was talking to a friend of mine who is the mother of 6 boys, and we were talking about how to raise Catholic boys and what's important. How do you do it? And one of the things that she pointed out is, she prays a lot to their guardian angels to keep them physically safe, but she is pretty adamant that spiritual health and safety supersedes physical, especially for boys. You let them go out and test things and figure out what they can do physically. But when it comes to spirituality and our Catholic faith, I mean, you really, really have to take ownership of that as a parent. So be involved. You don't want to hover over your children as they're going out into the world and trying to see what kind of trees they can climb or whatever. But when it comes to the spiritual stuff, you really have to be always available and being the leader in taking on their faith education. So whether or not they feel like it, they may not always come to you for the questions, but they may want to talk about it, and you won't know unless you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I can't believe that our the hour has flown. I mean, as always, when you're on the show, it just flies. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of all your material.
Yeah, thecatholicmama.com, MAMA for mama. You can go there. I'm also on Instagram. It's the Catholic corner of Instagram is a happy place. So I like to spend time on the Instagram at the Catholic Mama as well, same spelling. And I'm also on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all those usual places with the Catholic Mama podcast.
Very good. Well, thank you, Christine. This has been a joy, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gary.
All right, and that's Christine Flynn, and check it out, thecatholicmama.com. You can get that free ebook, and it's loaded with great stuff, folks. Coming up next, High Impact Catholic Talk coming at you with the Terry and Jesse Show. And time for me to shut down the Midwest Command Center, turn off the dojo lights. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back again. Take care.
In the 1990s, I lived and worked in Hollywood. But when my wife Betty's mom took ill, we relocated to Orange County. And it was during this time in our lives that I converted to Catholicism. Once my eyes were opened to the truth, I couldn't learn enough about the faith. But I had less free time than ever, especially with a long commute. That's when I discovered the real value of Catholic audio. Listening to cassette tapes transformed my daily commute into a miniature retreat. And that's the beauty of Virgin Most Powerful Radio today. Since the podcasts are archived, you can listen anytime on our smartphone app. I know how listening to Catholic audio can bring you closer to Christ and His Church. So I encourage you to visit the App Store or go to vmpr.org and download the app today. It just might change your life. I'm Matthew Arnold for Virgin Most Powerful Radio.